Shalom. Welcome to Challenging Torah as we enter the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim. Moses gathers all the people together and says, Ele hadvarim. These are the words which Moses spoke to all Israel on this side of the Jordan, in the wilderness, in the Arava, opposite the Red Sea, between Paran and Tofel, Laban and Chatzarot, and Di Zahav. Wow. Our eyes are glazing over already. This is going to be a list of names. How could this possibly be important? Except that Moses, in telling the story, it's like summer reruns where Moses is telling a story that we already know. We call it Mishneh HaTorah, is another word for Deuteronomy, a repetition of the Torah, but he's putting a particular spin on it. And the spin, unfortunately, isn't a pleasant spin. It's like, if I were to ask, how was your vacation in Europe? Either you could tell me about all the beautiful cathedrals you saw and you went to visit these synagogues and the people that you met that were wonderful to you in the park and how much your kids loved being in a Chagall museum. Or you can tell me, oh, the airport. The airport was horrible. Let me tell you about the security lines. And then it can almost be code words like security line, lost baggage, afraid of terrorist on train, and we tell the story with a twist. And I ask myself, how do I tell certain stories in my life? What's the story of my relationship with my ex-husband? Depends on when I'm telling the story and who I'm telling the story to, right? Or what's the story of the relationship that I have with my parents? Clearly, the telling of that story changes over time. If it doesn't change over time, it means that we don't grow as a human being. But if we keep those resentments as we enter this run up to the holiday season, and we keep reinforcing a negative story, that's the story that we're passing on to our children's children. Grandma was always. Is that what you want them to know? So here we have Moses. And he's telling in that list of places what seems just to be a travelogue, but isn't at all. They're all code words. Di Zahav, that means the place of the golden calf. Tofel, the Arava, the Red Sea, and in each one of these places he has an attitude and an issue, and continues to tell the story, giving the spies and where you forced me to hit that rock and that's why God is not going to let me into the Holy Land, and how you have abandoned me and rebelled against me at the waters of Mirabah. And he's really angry. He can't go into the promised land. He's bitter, he's old, and he's angry. And he's blaming the kids. Most of these people, in fact, all of these people who are about to enter the Holy Land, with a very few exceptions, were not on the original journey because it's taken 38 years. His words in the very next paragraph, these are the 11 days of journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. Translation, it's 11 days straight across the top of Sinai. You could have been here in 2 weeks with a break to swim in the ocean, right? But because you failed to have trust in God, this took 40 years. Wow. We call this a moment of tochacha, of rebuke. And it's very hard to hear rebuke. Our sages tell us, actually it says in Proverbs, to criticize the fool and he will hate you. Criticize the wise man, and he will love you. Maybe. I haven't met a lot of wise men, and I'm certainly not very wise. I more go with the Talmud that says, I wonder if anyone exists, as Rabbi Akiva says, in this generation who knows how to accept rebuke, tochacha. These are major portions of rebuke. Moses spends the next 4 Torah portions basically yelling at the Jewish people and warning them what will happen. That warning came to fruition, and these are very special times in the Jewish calendar, and this is always read right before the Shabbat. on the Shabbat that comes right before Tisha B'Av, which this year will fall on Saturday evening. Tisha B'Av commemorates the destruction of the first temple, the destruction of the second temple, and many other destructions that happened because, for instance, when we were expelled from Spain, the powers that be knew that this was the 9th of Av, was our day of mourning. And we read Lamentations, how lonely sits the city that was full of people. She's become like a widow. She that was great among the nations and a princess among the provinces has become a vassal. She weeps bitterly in the night, and tears are on her cheeks streaming down. Among all her lovers she has none to comfort her. All her friends have dealt treacherously with her. They have become her enemies. To be in Israel today, there is a segment of the population that feels that isolated, that feels the world is becoming our enemy, that fears yet another destruction. As Jews, we always seem to be facing, whether we're in our own land or not, an existential crisis. We don't just have tsuras, problems. We have existential crises. And so the Torah portion is followed by the Haftarah, which is called Shabbat Chazon, as Isaiah has a vision for the future. Hard times and then good times, and a seed of hope. Let us hope for a vision, that we may bring a vision of peace and understanding, that we do not destroy ourselves, as in the times of Tisha B'Av, the destructions of the temple, by senseless hatred, sinat chinam. Let's look at this Shabbat and make it a Shabbat of peace. Shabbat Shalom.